There's a kind of pain no one sees, because from the outside your life looks fine. You stayed, you were loyal, you built a home, you did what was responsible. And yet, somewhere along the way, you disappeared. At 71, I can finally admit something I spent most of my life trying not to feel. I did not marry for love. I married for safety. And for many years, I convinced myself that was enough. Maybe you know exactly what I mean. Maybe you've lived a life that looked stable on paper, but never felt fully alive in your soul. Maybe you stayed in the marriage, kept the peace, raised the children, paid the bills, smiled in the family photos, while a quiet part of you kept asking one question: when do I get to be me? And if that question has ever lived inside you, then this video is for you. Because today, I want to tell you the truth about what stability can give you, and what it can quietly take away. And more importantly, I want to tell you what I learned when I finally met the person I should have known all along, my real self. And by then, it felt almost too late. But maybe not completely. So if you've ever built a life that looked right, while feeling wrong inside, stay with me. Because what I'm about to say may explain a pain you've never had words for. When I was young, love wasn't the first thing people talked about. Security was. Stability was. Finding a good man was. And back then, a good man usually meant someone dependable, someone steady, someone who worked hard, paid the bills, and didn't embarrass you in public. No one really asked if he saw your soul. No one asked if you felt emotionally safe. No one asked if you could be fully yourself around him. That wasn't the standard. Survival was the standard. And if you grew up in a certain generation, especially in America, after hard-working families built everything from scratch, you were taught to be practical first. Don't dream too much. Don't expect too much. Don't risk too much. Choose the person who will help you build a stable life. So I did. And to be fair, he wasn't a monster. That's what makes this kind of pain so difficult to explain. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't violent. He wasn't reckless. He was simply not my home. And there's a difference, a big one. Because someone can be a decent spouse on paper and still be the wrong place for your spirit to live. That's the kind of truth people don't like to talk about. Especially not older people, especially not after decades. Because when you've invested 30, 40, sometimes 50 years into a life, it becomes very hard to admit that what you built may have protected you, but never truly fulfilled you. And that is a brutal thing to face, especially when you're no longer 25, especially when the house is quiet, especially when the children are grown, especially when there are fewer distractions and more truth. That's when it catches up to you, not all at once, but slowly, in the silence, in the routines, in the little moments when you realize you've become a stranger to yourself. And that's exactly what happened to me. I didn't lose myself in one dramatic moment. I lost myself in small, acceptable ways. By saying, it's fine, when it wasn't. By calling loneliness marriage. By calling emotional distance normal. by calling my silence maturity. And if you've done that too, I want you to hear me clearly. Just because something lasted does not mean it was right. And just because you survived it does not mean it didn't cost you. That's a hard truth, but it's one many people over 50 are carrying in their chest every single day. And the saddest part? Most of us never say it out loud. We just keep functioning. We keep being useful. We keep being dependable. We keep being needed. And slowly we forget what it feels like to be alive. Not busy, not needed, alive. There's a difference. And if you've ever sat in a quiet room and thought, I've done everything I was supposed to do, so why do I still feel empty? That's not weakness. That's grief. Grief for the version of you that never got to fully exist. And no one warns you about that kind of grief. No one tells you that a life built on stability alone can still leave your heart starving. Not for attention, not for romance, but for truth, for freedom, for self-respect, for emotional oxygen. And if this is hitting something deep in you, stay with me, because this is where everything changed for me. Not because I met another woman, not because I ran away, not because my whole life exploded. Actually, it happened in a much quieter way, and that's what made it so devastating. I met my real self in silence. I met him after years of performing a version of myself that other people could live with. I met him when I finally stopped asking, how do I keep everyone comfortable? And started asking, why have I been so uncomfortable in my own life? That question will shake you, especially at 71. Because by then, you've already spent decades becoming who the world needed you to be. A provider, a husband, a father, a peacemaker, a responsible man. And those are honorable roles. But here's the truth no one says enough. You can be all of those things and still abandon yourself. That realization hit me harder than any argument ever could. Because I wasn't unloved in the obvious sense. I was unseen in the deepest sense. And worse than that, I had stopped seeing myself too. That's the part that hurts most when you get older. Not just what others fail to give you, but what you fail to protect within yourself. Your voice, your desires, your joy, your emotional honesty. Your right to say, this life may look acceptable, but it does not feel true. And when you've gone years without saying that, the silence starts to harden inside you. That's why so many older people become quiet. It's not always peace. Sometimes it's surrender. And there's a difference, a painful one. Now let me tell you something important. This video is not about blaming your spouse. And it's not about telling people to leave their marriage. That would be too simple. Life is more complicated than that. This is about truth. This is about recognizing that stability without emotional truth becomes a slow kind of suffering, a respectable suffering, a socially acceptable suffering, but suffering all the same. And once you recognize that, you have a choice, even now, especially now. You may not be able to rewrite your whole past, but you can stop lying to yourself in the present. That is where dignity begins, not in pretending, not in performing.
but in honesty.
And if I could give you any wisdom from this stage of life, it would be this. Do not wait for a crisis to meet yourself. Meet yourself now. Meet the part of you that has been buried under duty, fear, routine, and years of trying to keep the peace. Meet the part of you that still wants to feel real before this life is over. Because let me tell you something, most people learn too late. Peace is not the same as numbness. Loyalty is not the same as self-erasure. And stability is not the same as fulfillment. That right there took me far too long to understand. And maybe it's taken you a long time too. But if you're hearing this now, then maybe you're not too late. Maybe you still have time to tell the truth. Maybe you still have time to stop shrinking. Maybe you still have time to become emotionally honest with yourself, even if no one around you fully understands it. That matters. At 71, I no longer believe the greatest tragedy is divorce, disappointment, or even loneliness. I believe the greatest tragedy is reaching the end of your life and realizing you were never truly there for it, that you showed up physically but disappeared emotionally, that you gave everyone else a life while denying yourself one. That's the regret that keeps older people awake at night, not always what they lost, but who they never allowed themselves to become. And if this message is reaching you at the right time, I want to leave you with one final truth. It is never foolish to want more truth in the life you have left. Not more drama, not more chaos. Truth. The kind that lets you breathe. The kind that lets you look in the mirror and say, I may not have lived perfectly, but I'm done abandoning myself. That sentence can change the rest of your life, even now, especially now, because no matter how old you are, there is still a version of you waiting to be met. And if you've spent years choosing what was safe over what was true, maybe this is the moment you stop. Maybe this is the moment you come back to yourself. And maybe, just maybe, that's not too late after all. So let me ask you something. Have you ever stayed in a life that looked stable while quietly losing yourself inside it? If that's ever been your truth, I'd really like to hear from you in the comments, because I promise you, you are not the only one. If this message spoke to something real in you, subscribe. This channel is for people who are no longer interested in pretending and are finally ready for honest conversations about life, aging, regret, peace, and what truly matters.